LV-895 was home to Weyland-Yutani's Palace Station, a classified outpost on the edge of the known systems. The site was chosen not just for its seclusion, but for the unique indigenous lifeforms present on the moon's exotic jungle formations. The station mandate was threefold. 1. Create technology with which to defend against the Xenomorphs. 2. To create related tech which the military can use to actively combat any opponents, including the Xenos. And 3. Discover the nature of the pathogen, the black goo, to determine if it can be used in a positive manner. For example, to cure disease in humans. Studies had already been underway related to old Earth diseases including Ebola, smallpox, and shingles. On the tech side, there were promising results in developing acid-resistant armor with camouflage capabilities replicated from some of the traits found within LV-895's wildlife. These creatures, along with human civilian volunteers taking part in the experimentation, served Palace Station's interests. They all amounted to varying and unexpected results in the xenomorph specimens developed therein. Set in the year 2202, the Weston Oaks novel, Alien's Infiltrator, delves into Palace Station's experiments and the ultimate outbreak that would occur on LV-895. In a cross-media arc unique to the Alien Expanded Universe, the novel serves as a companion piece and prequel to the Cold Iron Studios video game, Alien's Fireteam Elite. The story of Infiltrator follows Dr. Timothy Honecker, a Weyland-Yutani-employed theoretical archaeologist with aspirations to study alien artifacts. He jumped at the chance to work at Palace Station when recruited by the company to do so, not realizing he would end up working with very real, living specimens. After the xenomorph outbreak on Palace Station, Honecker escaped into the Katanga, a nearby orbiting refinery station. He was the only surviving staff of Palace Station, and his rescue would open the events of Alien's Fireteam Elite. After Honecker sent out a distress signal, the Colonial Marines responded and sent their vessel, the UAS Endeavour, to investigate. Aboard this ship were some notable members of the Colonial Marines that observed the findings of this investigation and offer further information along the way. First Lieutenant João Santos, commander of Echo Company. Staff Sergeant Alex Herrera, platoon sergeant for Echo Company's 1st Rifle Platoon. Colonel Olivia Shipp, with nearly 30 years in service, recognized as one of the Corps' most capable field commanders. Corporal Ibrahim Savain, the liaison between Echo Company, Colonial Marines Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Service, CMI-SRS. And Esther, 1089-12/A7, the battalion synthetic aboard the UAS Endeavour. The game's first campaign, Priority 1, follows a fireteam who board the Katanga in search of Dr. Honecker. Here they would begin seeing all of the twisted results of the Palace experiments and more, all appearing as enemies in the game. While there are many interesting xenomorph variants, first and foremost, the game features well-known versions of the alien that we have seen previously. Here are the enemies a player will encounter in Alien's Fireteam Elite. Drone. This is the classic, most recognizable version of the xenomorph. This is the alien we see in the original 1979 film, inspired by the work of H.R. Giger. Although the drone appears in the game as soon as the very first campaign, it doesn't appear as frequently as you may initially expect. Often the drone will jump from out of a vent or from around the corner of a corridor and violently attack its prey. It is lightning fast, and it will thrash repeatedly, and just as quickly it will run back into hiding. The drones will continue this game of hide-and-seek until they're killed. It's anything but cannon fodder, and actually a very tough enemy requiring many shots to finally take it down. Warrior. The next step in the Xenomorph's development, the Warrior's design was first seen in James Cameron's 1986 sequel, Aliens. While similar in size and appearance to the drone, the Warrior's differences can be observed by its exoskeleton. It has a ridged dome on its skull, as opposed to the smooth dome of the drone, and a thicker, more resilient armor. Its attack methods are different than that of the drone. It will charge directly at its prey, attacking wildly and even pulling it above its head. It will not run away, it will not hide, it will continue attacking. They are extremely tough. It will take a hail of bullets, but once the armor is penetrated, the warrior becomes vulnerable and can be killed. Runner. This particular type of xenomorph was introduced in Alien 3, born of a quadrupedal host. In the theatrical version of the film, a dog, in the assembly cut, an ox. As depicted in Alien's Fireteam Elite, it could have been from any number of quadrupeds indigenous to LV-895. The Runner has long since been a staple of alien-based video games, and here it is the most common enemy encountered by the Fireteam. While the Runner is certainly smaller than the drones and warriors, and much easier to kill, its strength is in its numbers. Hordes will appear suddenly from all over, scaling on the walls and jumping out of ducts at any moment. It is a deceptively weak enemy, and may find its chance to strike while a Marine is targeting a larger, stronger target. Due to the large numbers in which they hunt, the risk of damage and death from acid blood becomes greatly increased. Pretorian. One of the most dangerous elements of Alien's Fireteam Elite is the Pretorian. Its heavy armor is extremely difficult to penetrate with any number of weapons, and it deals severe damage very quickly and seemingly with hardly much effort. This is an enemy we've seen in games previously, namely the Aliens vs. Predator games. Arguably the first appearance of the Praetorian Xenomorph was depicted in the Aliens Earth War issues of the original Aliens comics from Dark Horse. Colonel Ship has some words on the Praetorian in a briefing, describing it as nearly as large as a queen, mean as hell. They've got a headplate that's nearly impenetrable. They use as a shield and for ramming attacks. Praetorians guard the queen and the deepest levels of the nest. They don't leave often. As per the Alien RPG from Free League Publishing, when a hive reaches a population of over 300 individuals, workers feed the Queen's chosen warriors with royal jelly until the transformation to Praetorian takes place. The penultimate form of the alien soldier, Praetorians grow up to twice the height of their brethren. They develop a head crest similar to a queen's, but maintain a more standardized bipedal form with only 2 arms. Lead protectors of the hive, Praetorians are the Queen's royal guards and army commanders. It is theorized that if a hive loses its queen, a Praetorian can molt into a new one. Crusher. This type of xenomorph has been seen only once before, first appearing in a different Aliens-based game, Aliens Colonial Marines. In Aliens Fireteam Elite, it is first encounters in the game's 3rd campaign, The Gift of Fire. As per a briefing from the Endeavor's synthetic, Esther, Crushers are a quadruped strain. They move quickly in straight lines, but are incapable of the agile leaps of runners and prowlers. Their headplate is similar to that of Praetorian nest guards. A charging Crusher uses it to bludgeon their prey. It is sturdy enough to deflect small arms fire. Fireteams lure Crushers to obtain shots from the flanks or rear. Similar xenomorphs have been encountered previously, usually born from thick-skinned herd animals. The Alien RPG also has some words on the Crusher, referring to it also as the Charger. It is the xenomorph equivalent of a tank. After being force-fed royal jelly and raw metals by the Queen's workers for weeks, a bloated sentry will cocoon itself in resin and undergo a massive transformation. Its quadrupedal stance is bulked up, and its head grows a massive, armored chitinous crest similar to a queen's. Chargers grow to stand between 1.8 and 3 meters tall at the shoulder. Heavy defensive protectors of the hive, the Crusher will charge an enemy like a rabid rhino, trampling personnel and plowing through even lightly armored vehicles. Essentially the runner variant of the Praetorian, the Charger's mobility is limited in that it cannot climb or jump very well. In Aliens Fireteam Elite, if these Crushers, or Chargers, can be referred to by another name, Staff Sergeant Herrera seemed to have one. She called them the Crunchy Ones. Queen. First introduced in James Cameron's Aliens, the Queen has become arguably the most iconic and recognizable design of a xenomorph next only to the original version. While it hardly needs an introduction, this is the mother of all mothers, the ruler of the hive, the egg layer. As per the Alien RPG, an alien queen's distinguishing characteristics include her size, her large crested head, set of 6 dorsal spikes instead of tubes, unique stance, and a second set of grasping arms. The Queen's first and only appearance in Aliens Fireteam Elite is in the last mission, Regicide, of the last campaign, The Only Way to Be Sure. What may come as a slight disappointment to players, however, is that there isn't necessarily any actual combat against the Queen. The mission's final goal is to outrun her and escape the destruction of the Katanga hive. A few notes on the Katanga and its hive before going further into the xenomorph variants. As per a briefing from the Endeavor's Corporal Sylvain, the Katanga has over 80 years of history, but the interesting bit is from 25 years ago. Its owners, Seekson Company, reported the refinery was destroyed, yet here it floats, in a system controlled by Seekson's rival, Weyland-Yutani. In the previous century, they were a moderately large interstellar corporation. They even had aspirations of competing with Weyland-Yutani. Seekson invested heavily in space facilities. In 2174, they purchased Katanga from its previous owner. The refinery was refit and towed to the mid-rim. Katanga was originally constructed 82 years ago by Kinshasa Enterprise and Détat Minière, the state mining enterprise of the DR Congo. In 2170, Kinetat fell under sanction by the United Americas Assembly. They had sold resources to the revolutionary forces during the Hyades revolts. To survive the financial losses, they auctioned off their space assets. That's when Seekson purchased Katanga. The ICC logged that Seegson scuttled it due to irreparable damage. There are no details on the cause or scope of that damage. You'd expect insurers to demand that. It was the Marines who claimed Katanga was scuttled. A senior staff officer on site conspired to hand the young hive over to Weyland-Yutani. General Delia Vaughn, one of the conspirators responsible for the Frontier War in 2184. Before her disgrace, she rose to assistant commandant of the Corps. Colonial Marine officers conspired with Weyland-Yutani executives to provoke a war between the United Americas and the Union of Progressive Peoples, UPP. The generals wanted a decisive war after decades of proxy conflicts and containment. Weyland-Yutani merely wanted to drive arms sales. The Colonial Protection Act was passed to prevent such things from happening again, and CMI-SRS was initially formed to monitor outside influences on the Corps. Most likely, Weyland-Yutani moved Katanga to a location in deep space, far off the shipping lanes. They used it as an ant farm to breed experimental stock. When the company wanted to accelerate their experiments at Palace Station, they moved it here. It should be noted, the Marines within this game are aware of the Xenomorph species. The story takes place many years after the events of Aliens on LV-426, and the stories of these creatures have circulated. Marines such as Colonel Ship have even seen combat with them. The Fireteam were as prepared as they could be, but were not anticipating the variants encountered on the Katanga. Even Dr. Honecker himself, who was first-hand witness to a number of horrors at Palace Station, had no idea of these developments. Intel on these new xenomorph types was being collected in real time. These are the new xenomorph variants, original to Aliens Fireteam Elite. Burster. This variant is close in size and appearance to the Runner xenomorph, with a very clear difference upon closer inspection. Bulbous, neon green glowing bladders all over the body and head. This development could be the result of some kind of radiation exposure, or simply due to the infection of a similar form of life on LV-895. Colonel Ship suggests the latter in one of her briefings, stating, "There's a rich history of poisonous critters on Earth, dart frogs, rough-skinned newts, the blue-ringed octopus. If a predator takes a bite, they die. Xenobursters take you don't dare kill it to a new level. Subcutaneous, high-pressure acid bladders that burst on death. It's a perfect example of xenomorph survival strategy. Doesn't matter if an individual dies so long as the hive continues. When a burster's killed, it harms the hive's enemies, so they charge in, suicidally close. This is a morph we haven't seen before. It must come out of some species native to LV-895. Much like the Runner, the Burster is relatively easy to take down, but when in high numbers and in close quarters, it can prove deadly. Spitter. Larger than the Runner and Burster xenomorphs, but not quite the size of drones and warriors, the Spitter proves to be a different but equally dangerous type of alien. As the name suggests, its primary attack is spitting out acid at its prey with alarming accuracy and in seemingly endless supply. What sets this variant apart is its apparent knack for self-preservation. Other xenomorph types may charge mindlessly, but the Spitter employs the strategy of hiding behind any obstruction it can find, and if a threat comes close, it will retreat to a safer distance. As per Colonel Ship's briefing, Spitters are interesting. Most forms of the xenomorph charge and attack with claws and striking teeth. These things deliberately keep their distance. They have claws and teeth, and they'll use them if you're stupid enough to get close. Mostly, they spray acid. Like terrestrial Oogpister beetles or spitting cobras. I've seen reports of ranges up to 25 meters. In gameplay, there are generally two types of strategies in taking down the Spitters. Playing by its own rules and firing at it from a distance, or ambushing its hiding spot before it has a chance to run away. It's not heavily armored and can be taken down quickly enough with the appropriate amount of gunfire or explosives. Herrera also had a colloquial name for these variants as well: acid sneezers. Prowler. This quadrupedal xenomorph is smaller than the Crusher, but heavily armored with a red exoskeleton. Its strength is in the element of surprise. Often it can be found hiding patiently on the ceiling or from behind a corner. It's much like a cat waiting to pounce on a mouse. If they can be spotted before an attack, destroying them can be a little easier. If they execute their surprise attack successfully, their prey will be pinned down, triggering the need for a specific sequence of buttons to be pressed for a player to make an escape. The grasp of the Prowler can also be released if an ally assists by attacking the xenomorph. With its thick armor and exoskeleton, the Prowler isn't as simple to take down as some of its lower-tier brethren, and it puts up a decent fight. According to briefings, USCM intelligence believes the Prowler to be yet another result of some kind of creature native to LV-895, though no specific host is mentioned. Possibly it could be a bull, as the Prowler actually does bear a slight resemblance to the bull alien, first introduced in the Kenner Aliens toy line. Further inspiration for the new enemies has been taken from the more recent entries in the Alien film series, taking into account the unpredictable results of the pathogen originally discovered by the crew of the Prometheus on LV-223. Dr. Honecker observed some of the reactions to xenomorph specimens exposed to the pathogen on Palace Station, as per his briefing. Weyland-Yutani provided a jar of it, but they never said where they got it from. The animals we used pathogen on got faster, stronger, more durable, but crazy aggressive too. The company wanted financially viable mutations. Genetically engineered nanobiotech, definitely artificial, unbelievably complex, way beyond any technology they'd seen. Someone designed it to do what it does, someone a hell of a lot smarter than us. When Administrator Bellows arrived, he had pathogen tested on xenomorphs, and that's when everything went off the rails. The team had 2 xenobiologists. Cruz thought the pathogen unraveled the telomeres in DNA, then swapped around sections of code. Pryor thought it activated alleles in non-coding DNA. They couldn't figure out why mutations weren't 100% consistent. It was Etienne who came up with a theory, that the pathogen can blend the host DNA with that of viruses or bacteria in their body. Matthews thought its ability to enter cells was blocked or inhibited by polysaccharides, cell walls, like in a plant or fungal life. Animal species never have cell walls, at least none we've seen. That's been true on every planet we've surveyed. We never found a way to safely dispose of the pathogen. Critters mutated by it we could kill. Pathogen itself? I don't know. The safest thing is to leave it in those jars. They're pretty tough. Pathogen-infected enemies added a new level of danger to the Fireteam's encounters. New forms of pathogen creatures were discovered on LV-895 in the game's 3rd campaign, Gift of Fire. Once Dr. Honecker was rescued safely, the Fireteam was ordered to land on LV-895 to search for more survivors of Palace Station. As per a briefing from First Lieutenant Santos, "We found shit Weyland-Yutani spent a lot of time and money hiding. Ruins left by aliens that look like us. An orbital refinery used as a xeno breeding farm. And a lab using tech from the ruins on xenos from the refinery. We still got to secure LV-895 in the alien ruins. There's xenos and mutants running loose down there. Normally we'd carpet nuke the place, ruins be damned, but Doc Honecker says that could make things worse. Spray that pathogen shit all over the damn moon." With each discovery made, it became clear that this site was originally an outpost of the Engineers, the alien species responsible for the site on LV-223. It was here that the effects of the pathogen became evident in the following creatures. Poppers. Small, pale, and crab-like, the 4-legged poppers are creations of the pathogen found on LV-895. They will swarm, pounce, and explode into a mist of pathogen acid. There is no sense of self-preservation with the poppers. Their goal is to find a target and release its dangerous blood, either by exploding upon contact or being close enough when killed. They move very fast, and the more distance that can be kept from them, the better. It is unclear what their original form may have been before pathogen exposure, though based on the experiments depicted in Alien's Infiltrator, it's possible the original life form may have been that of a rat. Rats, or at least rat-like creatures, were prominent on LV-895, and Palace Station regularly had to deal with infestations. Whatever the case may be, these small creatures are not ones to be underestimated. Pathogen Husk. These are the poor souls consisting of Weyland-Yutani security and scientists left behind to become infected with the unpredictable pathogen. We have seen what contact with the pathogen can do to a human body, such as with geologist Fifield in Prometheus. Interestingly, the design of these husks is similar to the unused alternate design of the mutated Fifield. This was an alternate design that didn't make it into the final movie, only deleted scenes, but this could suggest the existence of both forms. Had Fifield in his mutated state survived longer, as the individuals on LV-895 have, then he may have developed into the more monstrous version we see here. Not unlike the Runner Xenomorph, the Pathogen Husk is not an especially difficult enemy to combat on its own. However, in large numbers, they can quickly become overwhelming. They act with extreme violence, jumping, smashing, and clawing at a perceived threat. The Alien RPG, Colonial Marines Operations Manual Expansion, has some words on the husks. They are referred to as Anathema Stage 3, Lucis Freak, outlining their traits as aggressive dementia and cerebral dysmorphia. As per the RPG, a monstrous freak is racked with painful cellular mutations throughout their body. As the victim transforms into a creature of sheer rage, the rabid anathema's head deforms and their limbs elongate. They barely remember their past lives, but can still use basic tools. Freaks attack all living things on sight. Pathogen Stalker. The original creature, found on LV-895, had been the basis for Palace Station's developments with armor, camouflage being the key component. The Stalker, now a mutated version of this creature, can blend in and out of its environment at will. This alone would make it difficult enough to kill, but it also happens to be a large, ferocious, and very aggressive type of xenomorph. Often they will leap a great distance and pin down their prey, and are much more difficult to escape than the Xenomorph Prowlers. While not armored with an exoskeleton like a xenomorph, their skin is extremely thick and tough, ideal for the purposes Palace Station had in mind in the first place. They'll hardly react to gunfire or explosives, and maintain their drive to destroy until the bitter end. The prototype for the Stalker was depicted in Alien's Infiltrator, being named LV-895. As described in the novel, this xenochameleon has a superficial layer of skin which contains pigments, and under that layer are cells containing guanine crystals. Color change is achieved by altering the space between guanine crystals, which changes the wavelength of light reflected off the crystals, thus affecting the color of the skin. While the Stalker is one of the many different enemies to be found in the game, in the prequel novel, it is a crucial element and a major factor in Palace Station's downfall. As per a briefing from Dr. Honecker, Leons were one of the species Palace Station tested pathogen on, Mark Pryor's pet project. They're native to LV-895, cats with chameleon skin and 6 legs. I guess that's hard to see in the mutants. 2 of the legs turn into stabby things, and their heads split into tentacles. Pathogen amps up the Leon's color-changing ability. The mutation allows them to show multiple colors, blend almost instantly. 2 pathogen Leons got loose on Palace Station. A lot of people died. The final campaign of Alien's Fireteam Elite ends with the destruction of the Xenomorph Hive on Katanga, and with matters still left open on LV-895. More of the story would be revealed with the additional campaign available the following year after the game's release, Alien's Fireteam Elite Pathogen Expansion. This new campaign, titled Promise of a Flower, showed new developments on LV-895 as the pathogen began to take over. Aliens and other creatures would either be mutated by the pathogen themselves, or killed by the resulting mutants. The pathogen had dominated LV-895 very quickly, even transforming the Xenomorph Hive. The Hive began to appear infected itself, the chitin paled, with pulsating bladders along the walls and moat pods all over, and new forms of the alien inhabited them. As per Staff Sergeant Herrera, I overheard Ship talking about them. She said the mutant Xenos are growing fungus in that goop they spew all over. Probably a local species, maybe a mutation of something from Palace Station. Then she said 200-some kinds of ant raise fungus in their hives, and I kinda blanked when she started rattling off Latin names. All you need to know is some of the fungus down there bursts into spores if you get too close. What we've got down there is a swarm of xenomorphs mutated by that pathogen shit. That ain't so good. Regular Xenos are murder. Pathogen makes everything weirder, madder, and less likely to know they ought to drop dead when you shoot them. There's a shitload of mutants down there. Where'd the bugs get into that much pathogen? Or does it spread from one Xeno to another, like an infection? These are the new pathogen-infected enemies in the Promise of a Flower campaign. Pathogen Runner. According to release notes, the Pathogen Runner is a mutated xenomorph runner that has taken on the grotesque qualities of pathogen-infected creatures. It's larger than an average xenomorph runner and more durable. Pale and blistered, this mutation appears almost like one of the neomorphs encountered in Alien Covenant, though they have a more defined musculature and mandibles instead of a lower set of jaws. They are different but not any less dangerous. They will defend the hive with all their worth, defending it from not only humans but other xenomorph types that have not been infected by the pathogen. As with the standard runners, they aren't very difficult to kill individually, but pose a significant threat in larger numbers. Pathogen Blight. Also referred to as Pathogen Spitters, the Blights appear as a smaller version of Stalkers. Instead of attacking head-on like the Stalkers, the Blight xenomorph acts more similar to the Spitter variant, finding a safe distance and shooting acidic projectiles at its prey. The acid is stronger and can create large, dangerous puddles if it happens to miss its target. From a post-campaign analysis by Corporal Sylvain, the a pathogen mutation first encountered in the southern wing of the engineer ruins on LV-895. It prefers to engage from a distance using a toxic sputum. Adhesive and slows pursuers. Originates from a quadruped subterranean scavenger species. Possible symbiosis with the fungal growths on their back preliminary suggests they are the source of its toxin. 1.25 meters in height, including dorsal spine. Pathogen Brute. The Pathogen Brute is an unidentified mutated xenomorph true to its brutish name, most notable for wielding two huge fist-like growths at the end of its arms that it used to slam into its enemies. Esther had some thoughts on this mutation. Here's what she had to say in her briefing. They are a particularly resilient mutation. You doubtless noticed its arms. Rather than hands, they end in clumps of dense biomass, used to batter prey. You may have been too occupied to notice brutes lack a tail. Colonel Ship hypothesizes it was lost due to the creature's method of locomotion. Without fingers, it cannot move along walls and ceilings, so it no longer requires a counterbalance. This is mere speculation, of course. We know little at this point. These mutations can leap quite astonishing distances. The impact is sufficient to drive their prey to the ground and knock down those nearby. Pathogen Queen. This is a pathogen-infected version of the alien queen, enormous and deadly. It stands at approximately 4.25 meters tall with a heavy external carapace. Its tail and dorsal tubes are lined with sharp quills, and one of its arms bears a heavy club similar to the Pathogen Brute. Like the other pathogen-infected xenomorph types, it is covered in pulsating bladders. It is still shrouded in mystery. According to a recon analysis by Corporal Sylvain, there is no evidence of egg-laying activity or ovipositor sac. As a positive, there is little chance of independent reproduction. As a negative, this makes the Pathogen Queen mobile and aggressively territorial. Esther had her own comments on the Pathogen Queen, from her briefing. There are many unanswered questions about the mutant queen. How did she come to be? Was she exposed to pathogen as an adult, by a mutant invading her sanctum at Palace Station? Or perhaps the mutant brood stole a rare Queen Burster egg and raised it themselves. It is clear she played no role in the proliferation of the mutants. We saw no eggs and no sign she ever possessed an egg sac. Her role seems limited to leadership, directing her brood against the non-mutated xenomorphs. It is interesting she developed a full-body armor carapace beyond that of a Pretorian. We are fortunate to have encountered her in a molting phase, when sections of this protective chitin could be more easily shot off. Players of Aliens Fireteam Elite may be pleased at the fact that, unlike the standard Queen in the original game campaigns, facing the Pathogen Queen does in fact involve combat. It is an especially tough enemy, regardless of the difficulty setting. It will claw and smash at close contact, and from a distance can also shoot acid, leaving more significant damage and deadly puddles than the Spitters and Blights combined. Fortunately, the Pathogen Queen does have vulnerability, and can be best attacked behind its crest, which reveals a soft membrane. This can be fired upon once the protective chitin is blown away. Like all bugs before, and surely after, with enough determination, it can be successfully killed. Aliens Fireteam Elite was able to include all of these xenomorph types, both old and new, into a game that I feel is both challenging and rewarding. Though without the traditional kind of cutscenes you may see in similar games, it's able to unfold the story and lore through voiceover during the mission and through briefings. I think Cold Iron Studios did an overall great job, bringing big ideas to a game that had comparatively a small team working on it. 4 years on after its release, I'm still finding myself deciding to pick up the controller and play a few rounds, and having a blast doing it, sometimes getting pretty addictive. It has good replayability, though I am hungry for more, and not too long ago it was actually hinted that a sequel could be coming sometime in the future. That I'd definitely like to see. Have you played Aliens Fireteam Elite? How would you rate it, and what would you hope to see in a sequel, especially as it relates to the enemies? Comment below and share your thoughts. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with the latest from Alien Theory. My very special thanks goes out to Nicholas Butta, our Weyland-Yutani executive, and Gregory Ford, the Patreon Hive Praetorian. A very special thanks to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley Tier of Excellence. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for further information. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media. Follow @alien_theory on X, formerly Twitter. Follow @alientheoryYT on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, This is Alien Theory, signing off.